Good afternoon and welcome to all of our listeners for this webinar on understanding the impact of the FCA guidelines. My name is Michelle Leavesley and it gives me great pleasure to be chairing this webinar this afternoon. As a marketing director and academic in the field of marketing communications, I have watched with interest the different approaches used across a wide range of industry sectors to unlock the potential and manage the delivery of social media. And today, of course, we're going to be discussing the impact of the FCA guidelines on the finance sector. And the aim of the session will be both to highlight the challenges, but also to share with you some very practical pointers on delivery. And with this in mind, I am very pleased to welcome to the presentation panel today two very knowledgeable specialists in this area. So we have Greg Freeman, who is the Enterprise Social Media Specialist at CrowdControlHQ, the UK's leading social media risk management and compliance platform. Now he gets to see firsthand the challenges faced by major brands and business organisations across the finance sector, and spends a lot of time working in the automotive sector, observing the likes of Sytner and Jardine Motors, tackling day in, day out the challenges of social media management. And we also have Simon Ryan, who is the owner of Social Advisors. And Simon is credited as being a genuine pioneer in the delivery of social media across financial services, having made his name with Aviva, one of the UK's largest global financial service organisations, before setting up Social Advisors to help other financial service organisations to do the same. So, following the presentations today, which will take around about 25 minutes, we will move to a Q&A session. As there are many people on this call this afternoon, it is unlikely we'll be able to get through all of the questions you have, and I'm sure you have many questions, but we will respond to each and every one of them offline, and then we will take the common themes of the questions that are coming through and respond to them directly on the call today during the webinar. So, obviously, you are encouraged to tweet and share your thoughts with us on Twitter, and the @names are at the top of your screen there, @CrowdControlHQ or @SocialAdvisorUK. So I'm now going to hand over to Greg to set the scene and highlight some of the key points from the FCA guidelines. Simon will then share some very practical examples on how to apply them before handing back to Greg, who will close with a couple of considerations around the wider risk issues. So it's over to you, Greg.
Thanks, Michelle.
As many of you know, the journey began for all of us when the FCA kicked off their consultation period in November last year. I think they proved during that consultation period that social media works. They had a reach of over 27,000 when they were trying to get their messages out there. And that really shows the power that you've all got at your fingertips, really. Probably, like many of you though, all of us fed into the process, and I felt like we were concerned. They were more concerned that the spotlight was on the intricacies of a single tweet than it was the broader management issues. Undoubtedly, to deliver social media, you need an array of social media management protocols, tools, and management processes. And yes, I have a vested interest here, so do forgive me. At CrowdControlHQ, we see firsthand that you can aim to have the correct training in place on a tweet-by-tweet basis. But what if your password protocols aren't correct? What if the software that you're using is hacked? Or in a worst case scenario, what if an employee goes off script, leaves the organization and takes the passwords with them? And these are all the types of solutions and challenges that we're trying to solve, as well as the FCA guidance. I think from my perspective and from what I've observed of organizations, the FCA guidance did a pretty good job early on, especially of looking at the promotion prevention, and there was a real focus within there, as I mentioned earlier. They also looked at, and I agree with this following the initial consultation, there needed to be more emphasis on the individual employee accounts, and they really looked at the in the course of business element. And I think you need to recognise, if you're listening today, that all of your organisation can be working in the course of business on their social account at any time. If there's a financial gain for them at the end of it, then it would be considered in the course of business. But primarily, I want to look at the broader management challenges which are faced by the marketing and the compliance team. I think when they wrote the guidelines, it wasn't really relevant to the volume of content you'd be getting on a day-by-day basis. Social continues to grow, and there's no doubt that when you had one TV advert or one magazine advert to get signed off every month, then that was possible to get that through compliance and make sure that the right people were seeing it. What we found, though, is that when you're getting 10, 20, 30 posts a day, and I know this is something that Simon's discussed with me offline, that this is a major, major challenge, the volume of content, and getting that compliance workflow between departments so that the right people are in a position to sign it off. In addition, there's a major challenge around the archiving. It's, again, nice and easy to archive a single magazine advert or a single TV advert, and you can report on those when you're asked. However, at that sheer volume of content, finding the correct workflows, and I know a lot of organisations that I've observed before CrowdControlHQ is brought on board, is an email workflow. We would prefer it to be done away from an email workflow because emails are quite easily deleted, and we also like to see exactly who's involved in the configuration of a post. Finally, I'd say that the social media risk scale is going up at board level. So something that I've mentioned previously, Michelle, in other areas is we've got reports now produced by Accenture, by KPMG, and a real standout moment in those reports for me is that 46% of directors at board level considered social media to be the primary risk to their brand reputation. And given that the new guidance really recognises the threat to your brand reputation as something that would make you uncompliant, I think the board of directors are starting to really understand social media and understand the risks that are posed by it. So primarily, I just want to give you a few tips really to start off with, looking at how we can solve those issues and hopefully make your marketing team or your compliance team responsible and act well within the social media realms. Central oversight is extremely important. As I've mentioned, it's not acceptable to only be able to see the corporate accounts now. You have to be able to see your satellite accounts, and you have to be able to see your employee accounts if they are acting in the course of business. I implore you to work with your HR department to get policies in place which differentiate personal accounts and corporate accounts. That's a real must so that people understand what their own responsibilities are. The workflow between marketing and compliance and the management of record keeping, get these processes in place and test them. Make sure they're working, make sure information isn't going awry, because overall you have to have those processes in place to manage your brand reputation. If customers can make complaints, if you're speaking, if you're producing content, have everything in place to manage your overall brand reputation. As we all know, everyone on the call will know that there's the failure to adhere to this will, in the long run, result in the kind of financial implications and the sanctions that we've seen elsewhere from the FCA, and that's a major risk to your business because nobody wants to be facing those fines. However, what I like to look at is the opportunities which are available in social media. It's really easy to focus on the negatives, but there's a load of positives available to you as an organisation. Social media customer service, there's proven brand reputation benefits, and a real emphasis on customer loyalty grows through your social media use. Now, it's a real pleasure for me to hand over to Simon, who is going to give you some wonderful tips around social media best practice and delivery.
Greg, thank you. That's very kind. There we go. Excellent. There's the slides. Thank you very much, Greg. That genuinely is very kind, and I'm genuinely very excited to be here today. I think our industry, the industry of anyone regulated by the FCA, has been kind of stifled without some clear direction, and I think the FCA has been pretty good with coming up with some clear direction now. The ambiguity around this has gone, so it's quite an exciting time for financial services to really for the whole sector to kind of catch up, and of course when we say financial services, that could be anyone that's regulated by the FCA, including car dealers and mortgage brokers and what have you. So very exciting time indeed. So back in the day, of course, so back when I first started doing social media for a fund manager in the city, there were no social media guidelines. And why would there be? Because it was just used for kids, right? And social media was something that was done just for fun, and a lot of the kind of commercial value of social media wasn't really recognized. So when Mark Zuckerberg was obviously overdoing on sugary drinks in his bedroom there, we didn't have any needs. So the kind of principle that we followed around compliance when we started out of Ove Investors was looking at making sure every standalone piece of content was compliant. And we thought if each individual piece is compliant, then it probably work. And I was in a meeting when our compliance guy came running in one afternoon and said, hey, look, this has just come out. The FCA, or the FSA as it was then, has just brought out some guidelines back in June 2010. And he said, and we're already following the guidelines. Promotions and communications made using social media must meet the requirements of standalone compliance. And what the FSA, as it was then, was concerned about was making sure that whatever was applied to print, outdoor, or broadcast media applied absolutely the same for social media as well. And that was fairly straightforward and fairly simple to follow. Sorry, I'm going to be all fingers and thumbs here on my changing slide. Here we go. So fingers and thumbs, I clicked the wrong button, so my apologies. Thank you, Kate. And then it went kind of quiet for quite some time, and there was a little bit of tumbleweed. And for some reason, a lot of financial firms thought there was still some ambiguity. And then around May, Nigel Wheatley, as the FSA became the FCA, made a very bold statement that just said, look, we're going to be monitoring what's going on in social media. And I was kind of one of those cynics at the time, and I thought, well, there's no way the FSA or the FCA is going to have the capability to do that. But I have worked with firms that have, in fact, before I worked with them, had contact from the FCA where posts that had gone out had not been fully compliant. So just as Greg talked about, there are penalties from this, everyone should be aware that this is being monitored as well. And then in March this year, a little bit later than I think the FCA planned, the guidelines finally came out. And there's two important things that they said. One is that, look, this is clearly growing and it's likely to grow more, and it's an important tool for the industry, particularly post things like RDR, post the crash, the mortgage review, that the social media forms a part of how financial services explains itself. But equally, it went on to say that financial promotions, whether on social media or traditional media, must give customers the right information and meet the TCF rules. And of course, that's just repeating what was said in 2010. So the guidance is now formalized, and it says exactly the same as it said 5 years ago. Each piece of communication, whether it's a tweet, a Facebook post, whether it's on your web page, whether it's a piece of display advertising, it needs to be considered individually. Now, that's a bit of a challenge in digital marketing, of course, because what we're trying to do is create a journey. We're trying to say, well, look, here's something interesting, come here, see something else interesting, come here, and trying to get people to convert over time. So that's a little bit of a challenge, but that's the rules, and that's what we need to follow. So my first rule around making it simple and making sure you stay within the FCA guidelines is that everything you and your firm post online, especially in social media, is subject to the FCA financial promotion rules if it is a financial promotion. So what that means is exactly what they said in 2010. So if you're posting content other than financial promotions, you're not going to be subject to the financial promotion rules. The financial promotion guidance is specific to your content. So pay particular attention to every single post and every single piece of content. So I'm going to just take you through some examples of what I mean by being active in social media for financial services, but without being a financial promotion. So here's an example from a financial advisor practice, and as you can see here is at the top of their landing page, very handsome fella there, but circled we've got a link to their blog page, and if you click on that, it goes to a series of blogs down there, and you can see 2 blogs in that queue. At the bottom, so you found the house, so how soon can you move? is the state of pension like Jupiter Ascending? And that's a kind of quip on a film that was nominated for some Oscars. And you can see what they're talking about there is education. There's some entertainment to it, and what they're doing is engaging their clients in the topics that are important to their clients, but there are topics that are also important to them. So they're using social media to engage with valuable content. I like to think of, if you think of social media as the car, then content is the fuel that drives it. And then you can see they've shared those blogs in social media. So I think we can see at the top a tweet. Our new blog has just been posted, and our new blog has been posted down here on Facebook. Now, I've used that as a particular example because normally you would actually big up your blog there. But again, what we're trying to remember is we may be talking about a regulated product. So rather than trying to overdo the promotion of that piece of content, here we're just doing it very simple. Look, here's our new blog, and what we're doing is putting the title of the blog in the image there, so we're staying within those compliance rules. And if we look at the impact of that on business, you can see for just 1 month that financial advisor firm had increased their web traffic by 427%, and most of that web traffic was coming in from a social media channel. So we're building blocks now of content. So that's the first type of content, your blogs, your videos that you're sharing in social media. And each piece, as we've said, stands alone as being compliant. The next building block is sharing what interests your clients. And here are some examples of those. And we've got posts here that are linking to news articles that are relevant to the type of topics you will be blogging about. Why are we doing that? Because we're demonstrating we're experts. We're demonstrating we are constantly scanning the press, and we're sharing this content. Now, there's something in here I would like to point out. So that top left-hand one, do you think house prices will pick up after the general election? And what we've done in there is we've said asks the mirror. So we've actually named the source because, of course, newspaper sources aren't regulated. So we're actually saying in there, look, we're only reflecting a piece of content that's already being provided. So we're making sure that is not a financial promotion. We are just signposting to another piece of content. The bottom left-hand one, we're asking a question about the budget. So we're not making any recommendation about the budget. We're not offering advice. We're just saying, do you know how to make a budget? And here we're just talking about how you budget your money. And here we're talking about pension pots up in the top right-hand corner, asking a question. And then we're just sharing some money tips in the bottom right-hand corner. So the next building block of content absolutely falls outside financial promotion. That's just talking about your business. So that might be just sharing special occasions that happen in the office. Maybe somebody's having a birthday, taking some pictures of the cake and sharing it. Maybe somebody's going on maternity leave. Somebody's just passed an exam. Talking about your business shows the kind of character. What can I expect as a client if I come in to do business with you? And some financial networks are great at doing this, particularly around charity days like Red Nose Day. And then the next top level of content in these building blocks is talking about your community, talking about things that are going on locally. Maybe it's traffic jams, maybe it's a planning application, maybe it's a charity you support, maybe it's a big local football match. You're demonstrating that you are part of the community. And we're doing that because we want to generate conversations. So some of the content you may produce may seem frivolous is probably not the right word, but it may seem a little wide of trying to be specific about financial services. So here we've just got a great little one. Are these really the best and worst jobs to have in 2015? And you can see somebody's actually taken the time to read it, picked out number 7, the dental hygienist, and there's a little reply there that's a joke. And that's just about creating conversations. I often say that the leads in social media are hidden in the interaction. That's where the value lies. And then when we're driving people back to your site, you may have something like a pop-up, you may have landing pages, and then we're going to try and capture those visitors. So we're going to give away some more value. If we haven't given enough value away already in our blog and in sharing what's current, what's new, what's going on, we haven't created enough value in perhaps signposting local events, we're then going to bring people back to the site, and we want to capture those people, and we want to convert them into a way that we can nurture them along the lead process. So rule number 2 is no one wants to see your financial promotions in social media. Now that's quite a big one anyway, because what we're actually saying is I'm not following, your clients aren't following you to be sold to. They're following you to be entertained, to be informed, to have some time filled perhaps. They're not following you because they want to be sold to. Not even messages like, if you're looking for a pension in Leicester, call us. If you're worrying about affording your next car, call us. If we have been providing, these are kind of backhanded financial promotions, I call them. They're not saying, call us because I can get you the best deal on a mortgage, which of course you can absolutely not say because you can't fit in all the TCF rules in it. But what you can, and what people try to do then is kind of do that as a backhanded one. We've been providing mortgages in Hampshire for 20 years. Well, I'm afraid that falls under a financial promotion. So, and you're falling under the, you're trying to sell to me. And if I wanted to be sold to, I'd go to Google. So you may have seen this research. It was published in FT Advisor that Capita did. It was quite a big survey, and they found that 37% of people, for some reason they only did it on employed people, start a financial journey by Googling it for themselves. And if you talk to any insurance broker, mortgage broker, financial advisor, you will find that when they're dealing with the end client continues to Google what they're being told by those professionals anyway. So if I want to be sold to, I'll go looking for it. So the bottom line in all of this is don't post financial promotions in social media. You'll avoid the regulations, and it doesn't work anyway because that's not why I'm following you. So that's my little two-penny. Like Michelle said, I'm around for questions. We're around on Twitter as well, if you want to bang out a question that way. I always kind of suggested that you've probably seen on your little GoToWebinar box there is a questions box. And if you're anything like me, you come up with a great question, and when it comes to questions, you've forgotten it. So bang them in there as you go along, and we'll be at the end to answer them. So back to the fabulously gorgeous Greg.
Cheers, Simon.
Thanks, Simon.
Absolutely love the building blocks model as well. So hopefully people will go away with 2 models from today, because I really, really like that one. I'm personally really fortunate in my position to see firsthand how the larger organisations are doing it, the larger financial banks and services. And I think first we should look at who they are. So they're the early adopters, and they're honestly, they're the innovators in the area, and I think that's quite important. So what they've done is they've quickly learned the key questions to ask themselves when managing social media. Risk management of social media is quite a new topic, so new that it's actually only really been around for about 12 months, and we've seen a raft of new awards for people who have shown that they can demonstrate risk management in social media. We've got FS Tech on board today listening, and thank you very much to them and the Institute of Risk Management really for recognising that it is a skill in itself, and it is a really increasingly important part of risk management, because it is a new field and it is being explored. Also, they've recognised us, and that's fantastic for us, because it really enforces the importance and the prominence of British technology in the field, which we feel is extremely important, because at the end of the day, the FCA guidelines are our guidelines. They're not America's guidelines, and we really are proud that we're able to engage directly with those guidelines. So I want to look at the wider risks now. Simon's looked at the nicer bit, at the fun bit. I'll look at the risk side of things. So a little bit of a pop quiz. If I asked everybody on the line to write me a list this second of all the management protocols, apps, tools, and the softwares that you use, would you be able to tell me the following? Do you have access at all times even during your holiday periods, or if someone's off sick, or worst comes to worst, they've left the organisation, do you have access all the time? Is your social media being stored in line with your other IS or IT protocols? Have all the tools you use to help you manage your social, have they been penetration tested? What I'm trying to get at really is that you're only as good as your weakest link. Social media management is a process, and examining every part of that process is what will help you uncover the issues that are there. As I've already discussed, there is wider, broader management issues, and let's really try and get to the bottom of those. What I've done is, because we do have an idea now of specific risks to your social media management, and what I've tried to do is try to provide some of the most famous examples and explain not only why they happened, but also importantly how they can be prevented. So I think the most famous one to start off with is the one at the top and the bottom, which is the HMV issue. They went through a fairly unceremonious period of liquidation liquidation, and I think what happened there was all the staff, I think it was about 20 of their staff, had direct access to their Twitter account, and that is where you've not got a management platform as a layer in between. They all had the password, they all had the username, and they could all post directly into the platform. So they fell victim to not only malicious posting, which is people attacking your organization through your Twitter account, but they also lost complete control of their account access. And I think it's really funny little quote in the bottom right hand corner, which is, just overheard our marketing director, he's staying folks, ask, how do I shut down Twitter? And a real threat and a real risk to your organization if you have direct access to your Twitter account is you can't shut down Twitter. That Twitter thing doesn't just switch itself off. Another big issue for organizations, and this is when you've got multiple accounts on your phone, or I've observed a lot of organizations when we first sit down with them, they'll still have all their corporate channels through the one Twitter account, one Twitter app on their phone. And the American Red Cross example there and the Chrysler example are great evidence that you can accidentally post out. I don't think Ryan and his friend ever meant to post directly to the American Red Cross about how much fun they were having getting drunk, but it went out via their American Red Cross account, and that's really a PR disaster. And the Chrysler example there, that's one that is a response to an earlier incident, and that's really a really poor way of responding to that. For a start off, it wasn't that their account was compromised, it was a careless post. And it just shows the danger that your brand reputation's at when people do have direct access without any real parameters in between. One thing that we have talked about, and one thing that as an organisation at CrowdControlHQ we're constantly stressing, is that social media should be a customer service element. There should be a customer service element to your social media management and your processes. However, as the Tesco example there proves, and even worse on the other side on the next page, it proves that sometimes people, when they do have access and there's no parameters in place, can say the wrong thing. The Tesco around the horse meat scandal example is quite a famous one. They signed off with a horse-related joke, and it was terrible timing, and they claimed that it was already scheduled. However, it was later proven that actually it was just somebody who thought that was funny, and because they had that access and that management control, they were able to post it. The insurance one, which is here on the screen, is even worse, really. When Paul Walker of Fast and Furious fame, unfortunately, was fatally killed in a road accident, they tweeted to ask him whether he'd got car insurance. They also tweeted a lot of other quite popular news organisations to ask whether he had car insurance. Obviously, again, with direct access to your social media, that's somebody who thinks that's funny, probably a little bit wide of the mark, but that is the risk you take. Really kind of recently, actually, there's been an issue on an ITV news section where in the background of the section was a whiteboard which had all of the different passwords on, not only for computers but also for social media. And you've got another example here as well. And really, if you've got these processes in place, and you might be looking around your office now thinking they're over there on the whiteboard, or you've got them stuck on your screen as a post-it, we don't only have the opportunity for people to walk away with those accounts, you've got complete anonymity, so that if something does go wrong, HR just can't action it. So just giving you an example at the bottom, just of what we would like to get to a point of with our organisations, which is a complete audit trail, really, of showing each of your team members who's involved in the compilation of a post. And it just really helps out HR and takes social media out of the marketing department and makes it an enterprise issue, which is really what we're looking for. Another risk to your social media, one of the worst risks, and you may be sat there thinking, we don't actually do social media at the moment. Your risk there is that there are people talking about you, there are people trying to communicate with your brand, there are people complaining about your brand online, on Facebook, on Twitter. You can see from the infographic in the top left-hand corner, it's not just about young people anymore. This is actually from late 2014. I'd expect once the 2015 figures are released, those percentages will be even higher. But everybody is now engaging on a customer service level with your brand. To the extent, again, this will probably pick up as 2015 figures come out, but 47% of people interviewed believe that customer service has to be a thing via Facebook pages. So if you're not currently delivering your social media via Facebook pages, this is where people are going for that information. I was actually at a conference yesterday where there was a conversation about being where your audience is, and we want you to be where your audience is, and your audience is now on social media. And I just put the "we fear silence" in just to emphasize that we do fear silence, because get involved in those conversations, but do it in a risk-managed way. And I think I've tried to, well, there was a lot of doom and gloom around the examples I've just put in there, but what I want to emphasize is that when it's done right, social media customer service is fantastic. So you may have heard of the Sainsbury's example, where someone complained to them that there was no barcode on their fish, and there was a back and forth of around 15 tweets in January last year of Sainsbury's just using puns around fish and then coming back. And you've got to imagine, not only did it get into every news site out there and give a fantastic example of customer service from Sainsbury's, but Marty Lawrence's brand loyalty went through the roof, and that's what we're looking for from our social customer services. Finally, I'm just going to allude to the American Express, and the reason that American Express is up there. Anybody who has a positive interaction via social media on a customer service level, American Express say will spend on average 21% more with your organization, and that's the kind of standout fact which is really where you need to start driving your social media towards the customer service side of things. But I am aware it's no good me just outlining the things that you shouldn't be doing and what can go wrong. So what I've tried to do, and this is a fantastic little model that we've created around social media risk management, just to give you an idea of what you need to be looking at, the three areas that you need to be looking at to get a complete social media risk management process in place. First of all, look at your governance. Define the roles and accountabilities. It isn't just a central marketing thing anymore. Social media is across the enterprise. Have your IS department involved. Speak to your HR department, see what needs they have, and really implement those policies. I know Simon obviously works outside of this web conference with a lot of large organisations as well, and a big part of our role is to make sure that those processes and policies are in place. Escalation pathways are a huge part of your governance structure. Have processes in place which say, if this comes in, if a topic is raised by a customer, who do I then pass that on to? It shouldn't be dealt with by marketing. It might have to go 2 or 3 levels higher than your central marketing team. Have those escalation pathways in place and really test them rigorously. Next up, we need to look at our processes. And our processes, we want you to sit down as a group, as an enterprise, and identify the risks and the regulatory implications to your business. It's no good you knowing them, everybody has to know them, so make sure there's that ongoing risk monitoring. And do what you can to mitigate the risks. Finally, systems will play a big part in your social media risk management, and they're a major part of the model. Find technologies which can help you. There is things that can provide you dashboard oversight so that you can see everything in the one place. There are social listening tools which can help you really just identify people who are talking about you. You can't spend all day searching for yourselves on Twitter. So get out there, use tools which can listen for your brand and allow you to positively respond to PR opportunities. And finally, make sure you're reporting everything. Report it not only within your own team, not only within your compliance department, your marketing team, but make sure this is being reported across the business, because if you've identified this risk and it's being talked about at board level, then you're proving as an individual that you're doing the right things. And I think that's something which could be really beneficial to not only your organization, but to you personally. So if there's 3 things I want you to take away: get your governance in order, look at your processes, and work out which systems can really work for the benefit of your social media risk management. If you sat there and you're thinking, oh, there is all these things that we now need to do, and you've not seen CrowdControlHQ before, if you would like a demo, you just want to talk about it in more detail, talk about social media management in more detail, I am available at greg.freeman@crowdcontrolhq.com, and I'm happy to receive those. I'm always happy to talk social media. Thank you very much, Michelle. I will now hand back, and I believe we're going to take some questions.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Simon and Greg. So please, we have a lot of people listening in this afternoon. Please do send through your questions, and we have a team here who are collating those questions and sending them through. So let me just kick off. So the first theme, Simon, interestingly, you mentioned that your leads are in the interactions, and that is where the value lies. And that seems to be a common theme that is coming through on some of the questions this afternoon. So this idea of actually the FCA guidelines are very much focused on the marketing and promotions elements. But of course, we've also spoken a lot this afternoon about customer service and the importance of the customer service, and as you mentioned, the interaction and the value in that interaction. So where are we at? Who is responsible for social media management today?
Yeah, that is $1 million question, and from experience, it is led by the marketing function. So even when I look at the kind of customer service social media we did at Aviva in the general insurance side of the business, it was still, the oversight was still with marketing, because it's a kind of brand reputation thing more than anything. But I equally think this is one of the challenges that every business has got to come to. I'm not sure we touched on it today, but well, I think Greg talks about it at the beginning, about in the course of business, and regulated firms now may be in a position where they have to monitor what everyone's doing in the business, because if they're using their LinkedIn or their Twitter account or even their Facebook account as part of their business interaction, either through networking or prospecting or just talking about being at certain events or sharing corporate content through their own social media, then that falls under the regulations and should be monitored. Even if they follow my simple rules about it not being a financial promotion, it still needs to be monitored by the financial promotion organisation. So although it may be fall to the ownership of marketing, they have ultimate oversight, but they are of course overseen by compliance and risk management. And marketing needs to oversee perhaps lots of people. So if, for example, you're a large financial advisor practice with people around the country, you should be monitoring what each individual is doing. If you are a fund management business and you have people that are using social media in a personal capacity talking about this, you should be monitoring that activity. So ownership probably sits with marketing, but with oversight from risk management and compliance. But marketing actually have to apply some oversight to the individuals as well. So it's a big topic.
It is a big topic, and actually that leads me nicely onto another question. And Greg, perhaps you can pick this one up.
Certainly.
So just mentioned there, Simon has talked about the need for record keeping. And the question here is that the guidelines state that the firms should keep adequate records. And obviously, well, how we all define the term adequate can vary tremendously. So what do we mean by adequate record keeping so that when the auditors do come knocking, that we know what we need to show them? Greg, do you want to kick off with that one?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I usually, when I sit down with organisations, say just get everything archived. It's not just an issue of FCA guidance anymore. It's an issue of overall brand reputation management, and I can't emphasise enough that if you've got those backtrack records that you can go back to and refer back to, if a customer does complain, it might not be the next day, it might be 6 months down the line, and you'll need to know what they're referring to. So adequate records is probably a record of every financial interaction you have. However, I would encourage you for the 1.26, which I talked about earlier, which is the overall brand reputation management, archive everything, and that's what we really try to achieve with our organisations, and the ones that I sit down with and have sat down with, we've got them to a point where everything is easily archived, it's ripped off into an Excel document, it's stored not on social media platforms because the FCA guidance is quite clear that that's not okay, but it's stored in your own files in your own storage system, so that it's always something you can refer back to, and that's what I'd say: store everything in your own on your own terms, and make sure you can refer back just in case a complaint does come in.
And I think you mentioned earlier, Greg, about keeping things onshore as well in terms of UK law and obviously data protection. Simon, anything to add on that?
No, I think Greg's got it right. Record keeping is absolutely essential. And as part of that, you need to have an audit trail when you identify things that have gone wrong. So every business is going to have its own kind of risk profile and how risky they see social media. So it may be a case of saying, well, look, here's what we'll do. We'll monitor our people on a periodic basis, so that they're allowed to use their own Twitter and LinkedIn, but once a month we'll check them. Well, you've got to be able to kind of show how you've checked that, and if you've seen anything that's not appropriate, what action you've taken from that. And these are all things that are probably a bit of a pain in the bum for a lot of firms, but they're the kind of things that the FCA does knock on the door and says, look, what have you been up to in social media? You can go, well, it's just our process. And should you get caught out, either by an ambulance chasing no-win, no-fee lawyer 6 months after saying, oh, your advisor told me I should buy these shares on Twitter, at least you can say, well, hang on a minute, we have a process for this, and that would have been flagged up. And if you look at the process, you can say, no, it couldn't have happened because, here's our process. So it might seem like a real pain, but it's one of those things that's going to protect in the long run. And
okay, so play safe. Play safe is definitely the message that I seem to be getting from you. Right, Simon, I think this one is for you. Does this apply to unregulated firms, i.e. unregulated mortgage distributors?
Crikey, yes.
That's a big question.
Oh, that's a tough old one. Well, if you're not regulated by the FCA, then obviously the FCA has no sanctions over you. But going back to what I just said about the being chased by a lawyer or a consumer 6 months later, if you have done something that wouldn't meet the treating customers fairly policy, a court, and I'm not a lawyer, a court is not going to look very favorably. So if, for example, an unregulated distributor of mortgages said, this is the greatest deal you can get on a mortgage right now, and it turns out 6 months later that person could have got a better deal somewhere else, then yeah, of course you're still going to be subject to those rules if they're tested in court. So it is prudent to follow these as closely as you can.
Okay, thank you. Right, there's some concerns about immediacy, and I think we've probably emphasised that the big benefit of social media is that engagement and that ability to respond in a timely way. So Any advice for how our listeners this afternoon can ensure that they do respond in a timely but compliant way? And I mean, how do we just define timely? Are there any industry definitions on what a timely response is? So again, I'll direct that first to Simon, and then see, Greg, if you've got anything else to add.
Oh, thanks, Michelle.
Sorry,
well,
Simon.
ironically, social media posts are not termed a real-time communication under the FCA guidelines because they're not one-to-one, and you're not asking a client to come back to you. So you send a client a letter, for example, and say, "I need you to confirm this is okay." That's a real-time communication, whereas a Twitter isn't, which is, there's so much irony in that. So it's not a real-time communication in terms of the FCA guidelines. But in terms of practicality, then of course you need to be as timely as is appropriate for the nature of that post. So if someone says, "Look, I can't reach a call center, what's going on?" then you need to give a fairly immediate response, because they're going to start getting pretty angry and start tweeting much more.
Sure.
So that requires a bit more immediate. If somebody says something quite specific, I can't access my pension online like I'm meant to be able to, then that's something that's probably not quite so immediate. It's not like their house is on fire. But equally, you'll want to get that off of social media as quickly as you could. You don't want to start talking about passwords and logins and that kind of thing. So that's the sort of thing you'd actually say, "Can you direct message me, and I'll call you and we'll talk through your issue." And I think that's going to be slightly less urgent, because if it was urgent, they wouldn't be tweeting it, they would be phoning you. So I think the timeliness test is going to be down to the nature of the post.
Okay, that's great. And then, Greg, in again relating to that question of being timely, I mean, how do we ensure that the inbound questions that come in from potential customers or current customers, how do we make sure they go to the right person at the right time to get answered in this timely way?
I think we've got to look at our technologies and our systems, because we see a lot of people with different organisations who are what we call a social media postman now. Somebody who just sits there waiting for inbound content to come in and fire it off around the business. And when you're getting so many interactions a day, this can be really quite a challenge. So I think probably just to give you a little bit of insight into what softwares could do for you, you should be looking to automate that process. So around particular customer service words, around key terms which relate to key products, get those automatically sent around the business. And with regards to what Simon's just talked about, actually, when it comes to making sure that things are real time, again, just a little bit of insight into what technology could do for you and how it could help. You can automate the management of almost that two sets of eyes policy, really. So don't be afraid to have those systems in place, as I said a little bit earlier, just to make it a little bit easier for you, really. Don't be sat there thinking you're getting snowed under by content, because actually there are systems and technologies out there which can help.
Okay. Now, this is a question I think that comes up a lot, not just in financial services, but I think across social media as a whole. Somebody's written, "On my personal profile, I use the phrase in my Twitter bio that these are my own views and not of my employer." Where do they stand in relation to personal tweets? And this seems to be quite grey area. So does that cover them, Simon, to say that they're not the views of the employer?
Yes and no. So as an individual, you're covered by that, but of course your organisation isn't covered by that if you're using the Twitter account in the course of business. So let's say, for example, you are a salesperson for a mortgage provider, and you manage the relationships with intermediaries, and you happen to tweet something about a specific product that could go out of date. So you might say, "Oh, we've just released this mortgage," and you've got that in, that thing is like, well, it's not my employer's, it's me. I'm just saying this is a great mortgage, but you're using your social media in the course of business, so therefore your employer is going to be liable. So absolutely, and this hasn't been tested, so it's still grey. So even if you think you're covered, you could still be in trouble with your employer, and your employer could be in trouble with the regulator. So no, it's not a cover at all. And this comes down to content again. So being really careful what you post in your content. So I saw a director of a financial services firm the other day tweeting a picture of his lovely new Range Rover and talking about how expensive the tyres were and all the rest of it. And I would look at that if I was a client of that firm and think, well, this is my fees that have paid for that. And no, he might be saying, yeah, but that's my personal Twitter. Yeah, but you're the director of a financial services firm that I'm a client of. And so no, it's a grey area, but the employer will still, so you could be in trouble with your employer, and your employer will be in trouble with the regulator if you breach the rules.
Okay, and again, Greg, this is probably linked to that last question, but somebody has posted to say, surely it's about telling our staff or our employees that it's a common sense approach that needs to be applied. Are the FCA guidelines enough, or should we be putting any other policies in place?
How interesting. This is actually a conversation I had online a little while ago, about a month ago when the guidelines first came out. So what I said at that time is that I definitely think common sense and training is the place to start. It is a great starting point. You should be training your staff in absolutely everything. But we work, for example, in our line of work, we work with organisations who don't only have five members of staff in the marketing department. We do work with some organisations who do have that, but we also work with organisations who have over 500 people posting out on their behalf. And I think what it is here is that it's this in the course of business thing again, and when that starts to fall in the course of business, it's near impossible for central comms to get oversight of that if all you're doing is having a common sense approach, because it involves a lot of people sat there searching for accounts all day. And again, around the automation side of things, you've got to find a way of getting all that content archived and reported on. And I just can't see a way of doing that when you've got such a high volume of content. And I think Simon no doubt will agree, it's only going to grow. We are seeing a month-on-month, year-on-year growth in social media, which is astronomical. And it's very, very often people around the business are chasing money. That's their job. They keep their job, and they live their lives based on the money that they chase. So you have that additional risk, really. And I wouldn't ever leave my entire my entire brand reputation risk or my entire compliance to what is in essence chance and people, because as everybody knows, the most dangerous thing about any organisation is people. So what we look to do is get everything in place so that it's not left to chance anymore, so that everything can be managed, automated, and most importantly secured.
Okay, fantastic. And then I'm conscious of time, so we will be wrapping up. Just to reiterate, there are a couple of people listening in who have joined us sort of halfway through. So just wanted to respond to them by saying, yes, there will be a recording available. So if you indeed missed any of the detail and would like to revisit any of the content, we will be sending a link to a recording of the webinar following this session. So don't worry, you haven't missed out. You can catch up in your own time. So just some closing comments from Simon. Just a quick 30 seconds, Simon. Anything else to add? Any final tips to send?
Well, just on the point of common sense, my wife and I seem to have a discussion about what's common sense every day, and our view on what's common sense tends to differ from day to day. So just on that point is, yeah, of course, although the guidelines are great for regulating the organisation needs to make it clear how they're going to implement those within the business and make sure everyone in the business is aware of them. But if people aren't producing financial promotion content, you're producing proper engaging content, you're having conversations, you're listening to your clients, you're going to get more from social media, and you're never going to be at risk with the FCA.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much, Simon. And Greg, any final comments?
For me, it's just a case of reiterating the model, really. Look at your governance, make social media an enterprise issue, take that responsibility off yourselves on this call and get everyone else involved. Work out how you can get the correct processes in place, and then you're going to say this, but look at the systems and technologies which can really give you that added support to make it a whole lot easier for you to manage as social media evolves.
Okay, lovely. Well, a really big thank you to our panelists today, Simon Ryan of Social Advisors and Greg Freeman of CrowdControlHQ, and to you guys for joining us this afternoon. We have been overwhelmed with the response, so thank you very much for taking the time out to join us. Do tell us, give us some feedback. Let us know if you'd like to hear further topics on the subject of the FCA or social media more generally, and we can look at other webinars in the future. And do keep in touch with us either via email, info@crowdcontrolhq.com, or you've got the two Twitter handles there of CrowdControlHQ and Social Advisors UK. So a really big thank you. We will send the link to everybody so you can catch up again. And thanks very much for joining us, and have a good rest of the afternoon. Thank you.